High fly ball into right field. She is gone. In a year that has been so improbable, the impossible has happened. This one by Mattingly. Oh, hang on to the roof. Goodbye, home run. Don Mattingly. Tucker waits one. Deep left field. Down the line. That ball is out of here. Out of here.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Tablesetters, covering all things Major League Baseball. As always, I'm Steve, joined my tag partner, Devin. What's going on, man?
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Tablesetters. You know what? Everyone's been buzzing about college baseball these past few days, the opening of spring training, but just around the bend, we have another big piece of baseball, the World Baseball Classic, and we're very excited to talk a lot about that tonight.
So no warming up at the bullpen. We're excited to welcome one of the leading voices in World Baseball Classic coverage, Shawn Spradling. Shawn is an international baseball writer, content creator who specializes in the WBC, known for his detailed roster projections, some commitment tracking, and in-depth breakdowns of storylines from around the globe. His work approaches baseball through an international lens. If you're following the 2026 World Baseball Classic closely, Shawn is one of the most trusted and consistent voices covering it. So, Shawn, we really appreciate you joining us. How you doing tonight?
Man, thank you so much. Very kind words. Yeah, it's a blast. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to get to talk about WBC. And hey, I'm good to talk about college baseball too if we want. A little bit of everything.
Absolutely. So, Shawn, you've been one of the most dedicated English language voices covering the WBC for years now. You've created dream rosters, tracking commitments, building a real community around everything World Baseball Classic. A couple questions here. What first got you hooked on the Classic? And like Steve said, you're the number one person to follow for WBC coverage, in my opinion here. When you started this, is this what you set out to be?
Man, yeah, that's a great question. The first question is easy for me. Second question might be a little more nuanced. So I got into the WBC not at all like thinking about what kind of content I would be making or what kind of coverage I would be covering. Because for me, growing up a kid in like Austin, Texas, playing baseball all my life, all the way through high school, baseball, absolutely loved baseball. It was my favorite sport. So like I knew, like I loved baseball. I went to school for like sport management, business. I knew I wanted to work in baseball, but for me, it was like more of from a fan side. In 2017, that was the first WBC I watched, and I thought it was super cool. And so I was like early in college, I like tuned in, didn't get to watch like every game. I didn't watch any of the WBCs before that. But the funny thing is, for me, it wasn't even watching the WBC that like really got me hooked on the WBC. It was actually the World Cup that like turned my like almost like turned a switch on in my sports brain from like domestic to international. My wife is from Brazil. So in 2018, I was visiting her family when we were dating. And it was during the World Cup time. Now the World Cup was like in Russia. It wasn't even in Brazil, but didn't matter because the entire country of Brazil shut down for a month. It was like literally the economy like took a hit because no one was working and just watching like soccer all month. So it's just like, I think that was the experience for me that I was like, man, this is like what it looks like when players play for their national teams, and like how it just feels completely different than like watching 162 games of a big league season, which like, don't get me wrong. Like I grew up watching MLB Network, absolute huge like MLB fan all of my life. So it doesn't take away from that. I actually think it adds a layer of depth to like the big league competition. But so from there, watching the World Cup, like just falling in love with the international competition, going into 2023, which the WBC was delayed a couple of years, no one was covering the World Baseball Classic in English. I was looking for like rosters and who was playing when they announced in 2022 that they were going to have the WBC again. And there was nothing online at all. And so I kind of took it upon myself to be like, well, I'm interested in this tournament. I would love to know what the teams could look like, because I need to know what what I'm getting myself into if I'm going to like be paying close attention to this tournament. So then I started doing a lot of those roster projections. The dream teams is kind of the first thing that really like picked up steam on Twitter, because it was like what the best case scenario for every country would look like if everyone got all of their guys. And from there, I sort of did become like one of the voices and like, I guess, leading content creators for the WBC when I didn't expect to. It was more like, I'm going to make these graphics because my brain works visually. Like I need to see what these teams are going to look like so I can just compare them as a fan. So when I'm talking to my friends about the WBC, it's like, oh yeah, like this is what Puerto Rico is going to look like when they match up against Canada. But then other people loved it. People love seeing their country and like play on the world stage against the rest of the world. And especially when it's like someone that speaks English and doesn't even speak their language, but is like interested in like their Nicaraguan national team or like the Taiwanese national team. And like this random guy's talking about it. Like people love it. So I wanted to use that as a platform to bring people together and like help people from different cultures experience the same game, but from a totally different perspective.
Yeah, and I think a lot of what makes the WBC so special in 2026 is really just the history that's growing. And that's something you can't create in the inception. This 20 years that we've been doing it now, and that is carried, and there's some weight to this as well. You mentioned the national pride, but the history does play a large part. You think of the moments, I'm sure we'll get into it. But with the WBC 17 days away at this point, for you, what are the most important storylines that you're focused on right now? Whether it's the final roster decisions, maybe some unexpected changes in player availability, that's certainly been a storyline, or maybe some significant injury updates have been playing a large part in all the conversation.
Yeah, you're so right in that the history of this tournament and really any like international tournament is so big to, I guess, giving it credibility. Because I remember in 2023, there were a lot of baseball fans that were like, well, there's no history to it. It's like no one really cares about it because for one reason or another. And for me, it was like, yeah, because there's not really much history. It's only been 17 years. And each WBC that we have, I think the roots deepen and the history also deepens. So I think going into this tournament for me, it's a couple storylines. It's like Team USA trying to get redemption, trying to avenge their loss in 2023, which I think if Mike Trout was on this team, it would be the perfect storyline because he was like, obviously that last at bat, but he was also like after the game, like, we're going to be back. This was round one. I'm going to be recruiting. I'm going to be there. And of course, the dreaded insurance is the reason he's not there. But that's besides the point. Yeah, I think Team USA bringing together truly their dream team. Like if you look at my dream graphic, it's pretty much the same team, minus like a Mike Trout. Which even you could debate whether he even from a talent perspective even is supposed to be on the roster. That was more for like he was the captain. It's like he deserves to be there. But the biggest difference for them is the pitching, the starting pitching, man. It's like, have we ever seen a starting rotation in baseball ever at any level like this? Paul Skeens, Tarek Skubal, Logan Webb, Joe Ryan, Matthew Boyd, like Nolan McLean, like the rotation goes like 8 or 9 deep of like who could probably be all-stars. So obviously that's like the big one, I think, coming into this. Another one is the Dominican Republic. They highly disappointed in the last WBC. They also are bringing pretty much their dream team minus a couple pitchers. I'm really interested to see what Puerto Rico is able to accomplish in this tournament after all of their insurance issues. I think that they still are going to field like a really competitive team. And in San Juan as a host, they're going to be playing with a ton of heart and a ton of passion and honestly anger. So that's going to be huge. And then I guess one last one for me is the dynamic of the pool in Tokyo is going to be fascinating to me because everyone expects it to be Japan on top. And then after that, it's one team who has highly underperformed and then another team that has, I guess, more overperformed as of late. Korea has underperformed the last couple WBCs. They didn't even make it out of the pool stage last time, and that is a huge disappointment for them. Taiwan won the Premier 12, which is like another huge international tournament, a couple years ago. It beat Japan, who had all NPB guys and most of their top guys. So I think people are expecting that game to be really close and really interesting to see who's going to come out of the pool with Japan. But yeah, it's going to be a game I'm locked into for sure.
Well, you just mentioned this in passing when talking about Mike Trout, but one story that has kind of unfortunately marred the buildup to the WBC a bit is some high-profile players being unable to participate due to these insurance issues. So I know this has been spoken about a lot, but just in case any of our listeners may be not familiar here, explain to our listeners what exactly has happened here. And do you think the insurance issue is possibly holding the WBC back from kind of taking that next step?
Yeah. I think so. For the insurance for the WBC, it's a great question because I don't know exactly if it's holding it back. That's not really, I see the WBC growing more than it has ever before. It's grown exponentially since the inception 20 years ago. 2023, there were insurance issues too. I just don't think that they were as visible because of the names that we heard this time around, such high profile names. And honestly, like two of the biggest names on the same team really puts a big spotlight on Puerto Rico for this insurance issue. So to explain kind of real briefly what the issue is, every player that plays in the WBC needs insurance to guarantee their salary. Otherwise, no one's on the hook for paying them if they get hurt in the WBC. So it's all comes down to guaranteed salaries. So if Francisco Lindor were to play in the WBC and he did not get approved of insurance and he gets hurt, then he loses out on his salary for a year. If he does get approved for insurance, then if he gets hurt, the insurance company will then pay for that salary for as long as he's out. If he doesn't get approved for insurance, there's other alternatives, like you can get private insurance or you can play uninsured, or in the very rare, but in the case of like Miguel Cabrera in 2023, when he was about to retire, the Tigers just decided you didn't get approved for insurance, but we're going to guarantee your salary anyway. So if you do get hurt, we'll pay you. So that doesn't happen very often. Clayton Kershaw is another interesting example. He did not get approved in 2023, but tried to take out his own personal insurance, and it was just way too expensive, according to his own words. So he wasn't able to do that. So there's alternatives, but ultimately it comes down to like salary and like who's going to pay for those players. So Puerto Rico had a couple of their top players, Francisco Lindor, who we've heard since is going to actually have surgery. So I don't think even if he did get approved for insurance, he was going to be able to play. Carlos Correa is another one. Both of those guys got denied insurance. And so then a bunch of stuff has come out since then of like, Puerto Rico is going to withdraw from the WBC. Okay, no, they're not. Bad Bunny's going to pay for their insurance. Okay, he's not. Like it's definitely been a fun time in WBC like social media world, but I don't think that it's hurt the WBC in any way. It's definitely something that needs to change and needs to improve, because if we have our top players in the sport wanting to play but not able to play because of insurance, that feels off to me. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's a discussion during these next CBA negotiations.
Yeah, the Bad Bunny piece I was going to bring up to you as you mentioned the insurance, because that obviously is in a lot of headlines. Bad Bunny, probably the biggest superstar in music right now, the highest streaming Super Bowl halftime show, all of that. But that kind of speaks to the importance of pride of Puerto Rico and wanting them to play. He had been out there saying he was going to pay for Correa. Who knows if he was going to pay for Lindor. So that just speaks to kind of emphasizing what we've been talking about is Bad Bunny wants this for Puerto Rico, and Puerto Rico fans want that as well for baseball. So it could have been something that was very special. But let's talk a little bit more about how the WBC has grown significantly and all the global appeal. And you alluded to this before. There is still a debate in its place on baseball's calendar. Some fans, obviously, if their player does get hurt, there is the murmurings of what are they doing this for? Of course, Devin's Mets with Edwin Diaz, all of that. In your view, how does the tournament influence player development, maybe support international talent pipelines, and contribute to the growth of the game beyond Major League Baseball? So for those baseball fans out there that are skeptical of allowing their players, or not that they allow, but of their favorite player of their favorite local team, how would you tell them about the health of baseball, why the WBC is so important for the full picture, forest of the trees type of stuff?
Wow, great question. Yeah, I think for me, the future of baseball is international. I think that the future of sports is international. And the more that we see soccer develop in the US, or basketball grow around the world, or baseball grow in these new countries, I think it is clear to me that, like, in this internet age, and as we're able to follow sports in other countries, and as sports continue to just take strides and move forward, for me, the globalization of sport is inevitable. And I think that being on the forefront of that for baseball is great, like is a great way to grow the game. And for like anyone that says that baseball is dead or dying or boring, I challenge you to watch a game in Japan or Taiwan or Korea or the Dominican Republic, Venezuela, Puerto Rico, because it is some of the most electric sporting atmospheres, or frankly, the World Baseball Classic. It's some of the most electric sporting atmospheres in sports in the world. So for me, I think that the WBC is so special and so worth it for MLB fans. If we're talking specifically about like why a Mets fan should care about the WBC, I think it's because this is, and maybe this is harsh, or maybe this is a hot take, MLB and NPB and KBO, those are the players are playing to make it there and to get their paycheck and to make their living out of it. And it's such an honor to be able to make it from these different countries. But the true reason why they're playing is for their families, for their country, so that when they're wearing their national flag, like their national team name and their flag on their sleeve, that's why they're playing. That's the actual why behind it. And so I think that is why it makes it so much fun to watch these games, because you hear every player that plays in the WBC, it's the most fun I've ever had on the baseball field, would recommend any player to get to play in this, like try your best to play. Mike Trout, like, I'm going to be back. Like, it's the most meaningful baseball I've ever played. Randy Arozarena, my catch in the WBC semifinals was bigger than my World Series home run. Like, you hear quotes like that and you're like, that's kind of wild to think about when we have a very, American domestic view of baseball, because for better or worse, we have a very specific like sporting culture in the US of like, we follow our sports, we follow our domestic leagues, and we follow in baseball, like our team. Like if you're a Mets fan, you follow the Mets, and like you may follow like the division, and you may follow a general landscape of the league. But in soccer, you're following all of the European leagues and the South American leagues and East Asia. And I think that's where baseball's headed. I think we have a little ways to go before like it's fully globalized, but Japanese baseball is getting better. We see that every year with more and more imports to MLB. Taiwanese baseball, Korean baseball, Mexican baseball is growing like crazy. So I would say that's the big reason for me as to why fans should care and why it's good for baseball. And the other reason is like a little bit more, I guess, sentimental or like heartfelt, less like facts about the game. But like, I think in any time, but in this day and age specifically, we always can use an excuse to like get to know people from around the world, from other cultures that speak different languages, as much as possible. I think it helps our perspective of the world to get to like learn how different people enjoy baseball than the way that we do. And these have been some of my favorite relationships that I've built in my life, and conversations that I've had of like getting to know people in Cuba and like how they experience baseball versus like someone in Korea and like what baseball means to them. And you get to know the the people side of baseball a lot deeper when you see this diversity of cultures rather than just rooting for like your MLB club. So that's kind of
the
long
rewiring,
answer, but yeah.
for sure. And the rewiring of just baseball fans and how we view the game. The same conversation was happening with the NBA Cup, because a lot of people were like, I don't see the point of it, but these in-season tournaments and just a different way to crown champions and have things that are part of really the model that soccer or football internationally has set up for a lot of people. But there's an added incentive for certain teams in this year's WBC, as baseball will return to the 2028 Summer Olympics. And the U.S. has already qualified as the host nation, but the two highest finishing teams from the Americas in the WBC will also earn Olympic spots. First of all, what are your thoughts on baseball returning to the Olympics? And how do you think that tournament will compare to the WBC? And does it help it, hurt it, or maybe they're neutral to each other?
I am ecstatic about baseball being back in the Olympics. I think it gives, I don't have to wait 3 more years for the next WBC. I can just wait until 2028 to enjoy like international, like national team baseball. So that's going to be a blast, especially because it's sounding like we're going to have MLB players play in the Olympics for the first time ever, because we've never allowed 40-man roster players to play in the WB in the Olympics. So if that happens, it's going to be absolutely electric. And then when it comes to the WBC kind of playing as a qualifier for the Olympics, I think it makes sense. The hard part, though, for me and frankly for Puerto Rican fans, is it all depends on where your team is at in this WBC. And if you're someone like Puerto Rico and you're losing some of your top players, then you don't really have a chance to qualify, even though they're one of the top baseball countries in the world. And so it's a little unfortunate that it's like, okay, it all comes down to this tournament 2 years before, not like how your team's looking going into 2028. It's like we're in 2026, early 2026, and you need to qualify now. So I think that's a kind of a tough pill to swallow for some fans. But I'm excited. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun.
So, Shawn, one thing you've done such a great job at is highlighting so many under the radar stories, like maybe a smaller nation's debut or unique uniform designs. So going into this WBC, what do you think is one underrated aspect of the World Baseball Classic that more casual fans should pay attention to when this one starts?
Underrated. I think that the casual baseball fan is really excited. Let's say the casual MLB fan, that'll be like our standard, because I think that's probably who is mostly listening. The kind of like, we'll say replacement level MLB fan. They, I think every time that there's a player coming from Japan, every offseason, everybody's really excited to like know more about those players and to kind of hear their story, who they are, where they come from. Are they the next Shohei Ohtani? Are they like the next Yu Darvish? Like you have players every year that come in new, and no one really knows about them and about their story. So I think the WBC is a great way to get to know those players before they come over. If it's a year before or a couple years before, the top players around the world outside of MLB are playing in this tournament. So for example, like Shota Imanaga started against the USA in the WBC championship in 2023 before anyone knew his name in MLB other than like the NPB fans. So, and then now he came over and it was all the buzz and the rage, and he signed with the Cubs and everybody was excited. But if you watch the WBC, you got to watch him. Or the same with Yoshinobu Yamamoto and Roki Sasaki. Even Munetaka Murakami, who was like 3 years away from making it to MLB, but he was one of the top storylines on that Japanese team. So I think for me, it's like watch the WBC, and one of the underrated parts is like there's players that we're going to see in MLB sooner rather than later. So you're going to get see those guys before you have to see your team try to dish out $100 million to sign them.
I mean, there's a lot of that. Yeah.
We were going to ask this question later, but I think it actually makes sense now. You kind of just mentioned to it how it kind of becomes sometimes a showcase for some players that are not yet in the major leagues. Maybe a Yamamoto, Roki Sasaki, you mentioned Imanaga. Is there one player this year who you feel like will look back and say, like, this was a showcase for that player who's maybe not MLB yet, but maybe in a few years will be?
One player. That's tough. I think Japan is the team that everyone always looks at because, frankly, they have the second best professional league in the world, and so NPB has like high end players. They might not have quite the depth that MLB has, but like their top players are top MLB caliber, as we see every year. So I think that if I had to limit it to one name, Hiroya Miyagi is one of the top starting pitchers in Japan, and he may come over in a couple of years. He's a starting pitcher. He's on the smaller side, high IVB, high velo for a smaller guy. I think he's going to be he's a lot of fun to watch because he's a smaller pitcher. I think he had like a 1 point something ERA in NPB this year. For me, it's like always the starting pitching from Japan because they just seem to crank out pitchers like no other country. Like it's crazy. Hiromi Ito is another starting pitcher for Japan that's going to be really interesting. Hiroto Takahashi was a player that played in the WBC last time. I think he was 21 years old. So for me, I would say the starting pitching of Japan. If I was to put one more name out there, Do-Young Kim in Korea is like a 30-30 or 40-40 player in KBO, and he's still a couple years out from making it to like being eligible to be posted for MLB, but he's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, and I think what I was going to say about the reciprocity of the leagues, just having the fact that the talent level, you mentioned the internationally, whether it be Korea or Japan, or even talking about college baseball, bridging that gap of just for fandom. That's what makes it a good time for a lot of fans to watch things like the WBC when the competition level is at a very high level of having the players go out there. And that's, the same thing you make, obviously Italy right now, Milan, we have hockey playing, having NHL players makes a difference for the viewer and for the fan. I mean, whether it's pride of country, it's about quality of product and for the game to grow. And more people are watching probably hockey in the Olympics and watching hockey in their hometown market. That's just the nature of what the sport is getting right now. And any time of exposure where it's high level competition is helping the sport in general. I think that's going back to trying to convince people that this is a good thing and take off the blinders of, I want my local team to win. The health of the sport is more important.
Yep, totally.
And another thing fans care about is uniforms, jerseys. So I got to ask you a more casual question here. What, in your opinion, which team has the best uniform in this year's World Baseball Classic?
Ooh, so this is pretty unique for this year. I don't know if you've seen all of the uniforms, but in the last WBC, every country was responsible for creating and manufacturing their own uniform. So there were a bunch of different brands and manufacturers that were represented in the WBC and a variety of qualities of uniform as well, like actual fabrics, as we've
Great Britain. Is that what you're referencing?
I won't name any names, but yes. This year, everyone's doing Nike, and it's almost all cut like copy and paste. So you have the same design with like the same like pinstripes going down the middle for the white uniforms on every jersey. So higher quality, a little bit less creativity. But that being said, I think Japan just decided to say like, we're not using Nike. Sorry, we're using Mizuno because we always use Mizuno. So I really like their uniforms. Like their white pinstripes are always so nice. Although I will say they're not using it this time, but in 2016, I believe, before the last WBC, some of my favorite uniforms ever in baseball was Samurai Japan's like black pinstripes, where it was like the reverse, like the black jersey with the white pinstripes. Those were so nice.
So awesome. And we saw them in New York City. They've been posting on social media where they have the Judge jersey and then the Ohtani jersey. I think Harold Reynolds was over there like pulling one off the shelf and all that. These are things that are good. And I was saying to Devin the other day, we're going to see a lot of Aaron Judge jerseys in the Bronx, people rocking the jersey with the name on the back. Yeah. And the same goes for Ohtani. And this is, again, the quality of the jersey makes a difference. And like you said before, it goes a very long way for people to rock it and buy it and support the WBC.
Yeah.
So
Devin, Dev, I don't know. Here's a pop quiz as a
Sure.
Mets fan.
Oh God.
The former Captain America, David Wright,
Hmm.
he said that he has 2 jerseys hanging up in his either house or his room. Do you know what those 2 are?
Oh God. I should know because I feel like maybe he spoke about this on the documentary they put out when they retired his number. But I'm gonna throw one random one at you. Maybe this is one of them. I know he's good friends with Michael Kadire. So is Kadire one of them?
No. They're
Oh.
his own. They're his own.
Oh, his own. I thought you meant
Yeah,
other
yeah.
people's jerseys.
Yeah. No, they're 2 of his own. I'll tell you the reason I'm asking. One is a Mets jersey, but then the other one is Team USA.
Yeah,
So,
that one makes sense.
means a lot to him. Like even before like the WBC was like what it is now, and American fans didn't care. Like he still has it hung up. He's like, yeah, this is like one of the most.
I will
important
say, like, you're right. Like, the WBC did not have the spotlight back then, but I remember that moment of him becoming Captain America very well because at the time, like, the Mets, they've kind of come out of the shadow of the Yankees a little bit. Like, you ask a Yankee fan, like, yes, Steve, Mets will always be little brother, right? But like within the Steve Cohen era, I feel like it's changed at least a little bit, not because of winning necessarily, but because of they can spend the same or more money now. But my point is, as good as David Wright was already, that moment did put him in a different stratosphere, in my opinion, because like nationally, I feel like he got a different spotlight, and internationally, a different spotlight than he had just being a Met before that. So I'm not surprised that that moment means that much to him and other guys alike. I mean, even I think of the Trey Turner moment more recently and what you could tell that meant to him and guys like that as well. So it makes some sense.
Yeah, it's special. And I think we talked about this already. I think Steve, you brought it up, but the history of the tournament is only going to increase the credibility of it. Like if you look at even World Cup history, 20 years into the World Cup, it still wasn't like fully, like not everyone was bought in the soccer world, in the football world. And they didn't have nearly as many countries as they have participating now. So it's going to come with time. I think as American fans get more used to seeing their top athletes play for their country in soccer, in basketball, in the Olympics, or whatever sport it is, it's just, we've never, as baseball fans, it's never been a part of our sporting, like how we engage with our sport, and now it is, and I think it's only going to grow from here.
For the David Wright thing, is he rocking the 2015 jersey on the wall? Is that what we're thinking? Because Devin, do you know? Does that? Because I have to think it's the World Series jersey that he has up there, or maybe it's 2009, the first in Citi Field. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure it's the World Series jersey and the WBC jersey, if my memory serves me correctly.
It would have to be. That's, I mean, probably the most prominent stage he was on in MLB. But let's talk about Team USA. And you mentioned just Dream Team. They've reached what feels like stack status, elite talent across the board, blending young stars with established veterans, led by, of course, Aaron Judge, Paul Skeens, Tarek Skubal. Why do you think it all came together this time for the U.S.? And do you see this level of participation becoming the standard moving forward now that you have all these superstars on board with it?
Yeah, I'll answer that second question first. I will say definitively yes, because if you ask any WBC fan, the only like subcategory of player in the WBC that we did not have full buy-in from was American, like US pitching, because it's been a couple WBCs that we've had pretty much all our top bats for the US. And then ever since 2006, name the country in Latin America or East Asia, and they've always had their top players. Like there's never been a doubt that David Ortiz, Adrian Beltre, like all of the like top guys in 2006 were going. They were going to play. Johan Santana for Venezuela, like Puerto Rico had all their top players. It's been the American pitching that has been I guess a tougher sell for one reason or another, whether MLB clubs just did not want to let their pitchers go, or pitchers were a little bit unsure of this tournament. It didn't have the history and the credibility. So they were like, why would I do that? If I could just like stay healthy. Obviously, the injury stuff is always a question, but I don't think that we can ever play that card again, ever. Now that we have Paul Skeens and Tarek Skubal playing at the same time, there is never an excuse for an American pitcher ever again to say like, this isn't worth it, or I don't want to do this because, I mean, if you don't want to play because you don't want to get hurt, that's totally fine. But if you want to say it's not worth it, I don't know if you can say that anymore with the players that we're having. I forgot your first question, but that answers the second one.
Well, I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, because at this point, well, I asked more about how the U.S., I guess, why are Skeens and Skubal doing it this time around? Is it because they see the prestige that this is having? And again, you got to remember, these are younger guys that have seen past WBCs. Maybe it's feeding off on it.
Yeah. It's for me, it's twofold. It's one, seeing the like prestige, the credibility, the like history that's building in this tournament and how important it is, and hearing the Mike Trouts and the Mookie Bettses and talking about how this is the best baseball that they've ever played. And then the other side of it, I think, is also like they don't want to lose again, because 2023 was like that. I think everybody expected USA to win, and when they didn't, and the guys like Aaron Judge and Paul Skeens were at home sitting on the couch, I think that more or less they're like, we're not going to let that happen again. So I wouldn't expect this to now become the standard moving forward, but this team feels special.
So the fact that we have the pitchers there, Mark DeRosa has this burden of regular communication with maybe the major league clubs. For us fans watching the WBC, how should we expect these pitchers to be used? Skeens and Skubal, are we going to see any sort of restrictions on them? Are we realistically going to be seeing them grinding out on the mound for this WBC to win?
Yeah, so the WBC does have pitch and inning limits. So for the first round, it's pretty low. I don't remember the exact number. Maybe like 55 pitches, 45 pitches or so in the pool stage. And then it's like if you pitch more than that, you can't pitch on back-to-back days, something like that. So what that normally looks like especially in the pool stage, is starting pitchers will be piggybacked. So you'll have like Paul Skeens pitch maybe 3 innings, and then after him will come in Matthew Boyd or someone for another 2 to 3 innings, and then you go bullpen from there. So you're not going to have the length, which is honestly a case against the USA just dominating everyone, because you're not going to get some of the most valuable parts of a Paul Skeens and Tarek Skubal, which is their like workhorse depth, like being able to like just pitch it whole 9 innings, a complete game, because they're not going to be able to do that in this tournament.
So a couple months ago, we were lucky enough to have longtime writer Jim Allen on as a guest. He's lived in Japan and covered Japanese baseball for decades.
Yeah.
At that time, we asked him what the WBC means over in Japan, not just for the players, but for the fans as well. We're going to play that clip for you quickly. It's just about a minute or so, and then I'll ask the question afterwards.
Awesome.
We got to get a Shohei Ohtani question here, and this is related to him more than it is about him, but he recently committed to playing for Team Japan once again in the upcoming WBC. There have been some whispers that the Dodgers would rather he didn't pitch and maybe just hit in the tournament. The WBC has definitely taken on added importance here in the U.S. over the last decade or so. What's the overall attitude among Japanese baseball fans when it comes to the World Baseball Classic?
Oh, man. Yeah, good question. The WBC is everything here, because the whole idea of this is what brings into play Japan's tremendous insecurity and how Japan is viewed overseas, the pride of the quality of Japanese baseball and the effort that goes into it, and the desire, the actual idea that they get to be on a level playing field with players from other countries. And of course, just nationalism.
Yeah.
And the whole thing comes together, and the WBC is a 3-week party in Japan. Even non-baseball fans really get into it. It's amazing. So
my question after watching that clip from Jim would be, in your time covering the WBC, is that the feeling you get too? Is there any other country in this tournament that you think treats the WBC the same as Japan does, as far as, again, not just the players, but how the fans see it as well?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great answer from him, because I feel like that is what he has been doing this way longer than I, much more knowledgeable on Japanese baseball than I. So I will defer to him for Japan for sure. But that is the sense that I get from Japan. But I wouldn't say that there's definitely other countries that I would say care about it as much and show as much love and passion for the tournament because of just how important it is for them to see like their national team, their country go up on the world stage against the rest of the world. That like pride and nationalism like is a very important piece for, I would say, really any of the like Latin American countries. The Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, Venezuela are always like, the viewership numbers are crazy. So it might look different than the way that the Japanese baseball fan base enjoys or takes in the WBC. But I think that I would chalk that up to cultural differences. Like it just looks very different to follow baseball over there as it does in Latin America. And I would also say, like, I'll use Puerto Rico for an example because of the recent insurance events. But I think that I think for me, how much of an outrage and uproar there was around their top players not getting insurance was more of a case of how much they love the WBC than anything else. Of like there would not be the reaction that we had. Bad Bunny would not be trying to pay these players ways to play in the WBC if they didn't care, or if even they cared a normal amount. Like they love their country. They want to see their friends and like be with their friends and family and see Puerto Rico up against the rest of the world and get to compete on the world stage, because especially when you come from like a smaller island, like that means so much, because you don't get that opportunity very often to see your country go up against the biggest in the world. So yeah, I definitely don't. Japan is up there with like it's an obsession, and I wouldn't say that they're the only ones. Definitely.
It's just awesome to think about the party atmosphere. And you mentioned the World Cup. It's hard not to draw the comparisons to it, and thinking about the watch parties. When USA is in the World Cup, and hopefully they do well this year, it's just a different vibe. And I think for people, even casuals, there's so many people, and Devin can speak to this here on Long Island and around the United States. Like there's a lot of people that just follow soccer for like, they just want to drink a few beers and watch. And I feel like the WBC is approaching that for some people as well, where people want an excuse to have a good time and enjoy camaraderie with friends and family.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that, again, I think the more that soccer grows in the US, the more international sporting culture grows in the US. And in turn, I think the WBC will reap the benefits of like American sports fans getting around to the idea of like, yeah, we want to see our best players go play for our country. And maybe I'm a Yankees fan, but like Roman Anthony playing for Team USA, let's go. Like I'm going to root for him for 2 weeks and then I'll go back to hating him again. Like I love that kind of stuff.
For sure. And we've talked about how stacked Team USA is this year. We mentioned Paul Skeens, we mentioned Tarek Skubal, but if we were to take all the restrictions off and there was no hesitation from Major League Baseball teams, who would you complete that dream rotation behind Skeens and Skubal? Is there someone in mind? Is it a Garrett Crochet? Maybe it's a Chris Sale or a Zach Wheeler when healthy. Is there someone else in mind that you have?
Yeah, the guys that you named for sure. I think after Skubal and Skeens, I'd love to have Crochet there. I think that would be him. Plus, I think my dream team had Hunter Brown right after him. And now, Shane, like I am biased. I'm an Astros fan, but like I love Hunter Brown. And so
he's
having
a bulldog.
like 2 righties and 2 lefties to round out that 4-man rotation would be awesome. And really in the WBC, you only need 4 starting pitchers in that rotation because you only have 4 games in the pool stage, and then you can kind of repeat for the quarterfinals to the final. You only have 7 games at most. You have 4 pool games, quarterfinal, semis in the championship. So I think with those 3, I mean, those four, like that would just be unbeatable.
Is there a nickname for this USA team yet, like such as the Dream Team? I've tried briefly to get the Seam Team to catch on, and it absolutely went nowhere. So maybe you can help me out with that. But is there? I feel like there's got to be a nickname for this team. Have you heard of any yet, or is just nothing?
I haven't heard of any yet. The Seam Team is not bad, honestly. I don't know.
You could make it happen. I apparently do not have that power, but you might have the ability.
I'm going to need to be thinking on that one, because I think you're right. This is like a team of destiny, kind of like it needs something special. Dream Team, like whatever it is. I'm going to need to think on that one for a second, but that's a good point.
Fair.
So each team has a designated pitcher pool, the DPP, which allows federations to list up to 6 additional pitchers who can be added later in the tournament. Teams may replace up to 4 pitchers after the first round and up to 2 more after the quarterfinals, provided those pitchers were previously designated as potential substitutes. So on your end, how likely do you think it is that teams will utilize their DPP this year? And do you see those moves happening strictly out of necessity, or maybe could teams approach it strategically to gain a competitive advantage because they want to have an edge and win this tournament?
Yeah, that is a great question. This is one thing that I feel like I am maybe not as knowledgeable on, because in 2023, I don't think too many teams used players from their designated pitchers pool. And I didn't really follow it before then. So it's a really good question, because I very much see the strategy behind it of, okay, maybe they didn't get approved for full insurance, or like their MLB clubs were like, we don't want you pitching the whole tournament. We need you here for spring training. A myriad of reasons, whatever those reasons are, and they're on this list and they're not on the official roster. It's a huge advantage for like Puerto Rico to bring in Jose Barrios like halfway through the tournament. But to answer your question, I don't know how likely it is, because I could see it as strategy on one end. I could also see it as an excuse on the other hand of like, I think Kenley Jansen was on the designated list for the Netherlands in 2023. And I don't think that there was a chance that they were going to let him play, even if they did make it out of the pool. Maybe I'm wrong. That's just kind of my instinct, but it might be like a country to country, or even more, I guess more real, probably a MLB club to MLB club basis of like who they let play.
Right.
I feel like when we think of the WBC, we think of moments. We've kind of named some of them tonight. I mean, you think of Ohtani versus Trout. You think of the Adam Jones catch, the Javi Baez no-look tag. And then like recently, you think of the Netflix promo in Japan that they put out. What's the most cinematic or hype-inducing moment you've seen in WBC history, where if you had to show someone who had never seen the WBC one moment to try to get them to buy in, what would you choose?
Wow. I'm going to give the most basic answer because it's the right answer. For me, it is hands down Shohei Ohtani versus Mike Trout. Like, I have never seen an at-bat as exhilarating as that one. And I was there in person. I was lucky enough to be there at that game. And it was like, no one was breathing in the stadium. But you see like the way that Netflix has used that clip over and over, it truly is like, and it is absolute cinema, to quote the meme. It's just like, you cannot write a better storybook ending to a tournament. I remember, and I have tweets about this actually, in the summer of 2022, when it was announced by MLB that they were going to have the tournament again in 2023. It was 9 months before the tournament. And Mike Trout was like maybe the first one, at least one of the first ones to commit to play for Team USA. The moment that he committed, everyone was already started on Twitter of like, oh, what if we saw Shohei Ohtani versus Mike Trout? Like, oh my gosh, like these are two of the best countries. Maybe it can happen. They're teammates. They've never faced each other. There were interviews on MLB Network of Mike Trout saying like, yeah, I've never even faced him, not even on the backfields. So if I get to, like, it'd be a lot of fun. Like, it's probably not going to happen, but it'd be a lot of fun. And then it happens. Like, I don't want to try to chase that moment again in this next WBC because it's just not going to happen. And we'll have new moments that are like just as great, or at least like great in different ways. But that moment is like, that is baseball history. And I think that at bat will be solidified as like at least one of the greatest at bats of all time in MLB and international play, kind of just all baseball.
Oh, for sure. It's absolutely amazing. And if you guys haven't checked it out, go and watch it. I mean, I think everyone that's listened to the podcast is, but go and watch it. Make your day better. Watch the at bat right now on YouTube. We've talked about the incredibly detailed graphics that you in the roster breakdown years. From your end, the most surprising or maybe unexpected fan reaction you've received, maybe someone passionately debating a dream team omission or maybe a roster decision. X is a wild place. So I know, maybe speak to some of the stuff you get from the detailed graphic and the reactions you got.
X is a wild place. That's for sure. That's a hard question because it's hard to remember all of the times that people have said I'm wrong on my projections. It's more often than not that like I put someone in the position that they wouldn't put those players in, or like how dare you include this player and not put this player on my MLB team on that national team. Although I'll say like probably one of the moments that sticks out the most for me wasn't my dream teams or my roster projections. It was actually my 2023 WBC power rankings. People were way up in arms about that. And we've already talked about them so much in this episode, but like I think I underrated Puerto Rico, as everyone does, and they were not happy. They were ranked like 6th instead of 5th, and it was just an outrage. But yeah, for me, it just shows like how passionate like people are about their country. It is cool though when like I do something right, or like I show a little bit of ball knowledge and people are like, oh, how does he know that player? Why is he on the roster? That's cool. So that's always fun because there's not really anyone that like, it's very few people in media that cover all 20 countries, I'll say. And I think that's why people enjoy my graphics, is because I want to be able to cover Brazil and Nicaragua and the Czech Republic as much as I cover the United States.
So this will actually be the first time the WBC uses the pitch clock. Do you think there's any room in the WBC for other rule changes? You think of all the tinkering Rob Manfred has done, and then he's brought up other ideas that haven't come to fruition. Seems to be very like driven by entertainment value. Is that something you think we could see in the WBC just in general?
Yeah, I think that I would expect whatever MLB does, if NPB and KBO follow suit, I think that will become the standard in the WBC. It's like the pitch clock, where pitch clock is in MLB, and I believe it's now in KBO as well, and so they are using it in the WBC. I could see it being the same for ABS and any other initiative that we're trying. Because so the thing for me is like I wouldn't want to implement the rule until all of the major leagues implement it. But if KBO and NPB use the pitch clock, I'm all for it. Like now it's fair ground for everyone. Because you even saw like there were reports coming out that the Japanese pitchers were starting in like November. I think it was November, maybe December, where they were already preparing to use the pitch clock for the WBC. They were like already starting to like ramp up using a pitch clock because they weren't used to it. So I could definitely see that happening for all of the other rule changes as well.
Has there been rumblings about the WBC ball? Is there a compromise? I know that it's slightly different than the MLB ball. Is there, because obviously that plays a huge part. I mean, from my research, it has a slightly different, maybe tackier leather that affects the grip for the pitchers. Is there any buzz with some of the other teams you're covering of like, we are not a fan of this ball, or maybe it's something that maybe comes up in the middle of this tournament?
Yeah, I remember something came up in 2023. I do have a terrible memory, so I don't remember if it was like more like the Japanese ball or more like MLB. But I do remember that being sort of an issue, that there was speculation on like, okay, well, maybe players on this team might not be able to control the ball as well, or get the same grip as you would expect from the ball. So I don't know. I haven't heard anything for 2026 yet. But I know MLB and NPB don't have quite the same ball. So
Right.
I feel like one team is going to be at, I guess, disadvantage, or at least be experiencing maybe less or more tackiness than they're expecting, for sure.
It's something to watch. It's always a huge conversation throughout the season. And we obviously had the stuff with the bats and things in the beginning of the year. Whatever happens, it will be a storyline even for a little bit. But let's talk about some of the surprise teams. It seems like every World Baseball Classic features a surprise team. You mentioned 2023. Mexico was just one Murakami double away from reaching the championship. And while most fans are projecting a final that does include teams like we mentioned tonight, like Japan or the US or maybe the DR, which team do you believe could surprise everyone and maybe make a deep run this year and shock the world and be in the finals?
Yeah, there's a couple teams that I'm putting in my dark horse tier. I'm no longer putting like Mexico and Venezuela in that dark horse tier because I think they're legitimate like competition to make it to the final. I think they showed that in 2023, and they have pretty much the same strength as 2023 when Venezuela was a Trey Turner grand slam away from making it to the next round, and Mexico was a Murakami hit off the wall from making it, literally beating Japan and going up against the US. So I don't even include those in really the dark horses anymore. So for me, the ones that are maybe a surprise or might be like the next tier of like, oh man, people aren't going to expect them to make a splash, for me is Italy. I think Italy has a ton of young talent. Canada is bringing probably their best roster they've ever had in the WBC. Honestly, Taiwan is really interesting to me. I think they have a lot of pitching, and for me, pitching is like the biggest difference maker in the WBC because not many countries have pitching depth. So to say those, I will also say I don't know if they have like a chance at like making a super deep run, but putting together my like roster projections for after the rosters have been announced, I was really surprised at Panama. Like I haven't heard anyone talking about Panama's roster, and like pretty much their whole lineup is big leaguers or like prospects. You have Leo Jimenez, you have Jose Caballero, Johan Camargo, Edmundo Sosa, a lot of like their whole Enrique Bradfield Jr., whose parents are Panamanian. So you have a lot of like talent. Miguel Amaya, you have a lot of talent on the offensive side, but then they also have like pitchers that like Logan Allen is a big league name. He's not like a huge all-star, like perennial all-star or anything, but like a big league arm. And then after him, you have players that are like really successful or at least decent in NPB and KBO, in Ariel Jurado, Humberto Mejio, Jaime Barria. So Alberto Baldonado is like a pretty good relief arm in Japan. So I'm kind of rambling on Panama, but I do really like their roster, and I think they could make a splash.
Well, Shawn, we want to thank you for giving us so much time tonight. We know you're really in the thick of it right now. It's super, super busy with all the coverage going on. But as we wrap up here, we want to give you the floor. Where can fans follow your coverage throughout the Classic? And what should they be looking out for from you over the next few weeks leading up to the tournament?
Yeah, no, thank you guys so much for having me. I know we've been trying to make this happen for a little while, and it's been awesome. Really appreciate it, and I'm sure it won't be the last time we get to talk with WBC. But yeah, so my social media like accounts are at Shawn_Spradling on both X and on Instagram. I'm starting to post a lot more on Instagram. In 2023, it was mostly X or Twitter at the time. Now I'm doing a lot more video content. So if you like video content, like baseball content, Instagram is the way to go for me. A little bit on TikTok, a little bit on YouTube, not as much though. And yeah, for the next couple weeks, I'm going to be posting as much as I possibly can about the WBC, whatever that means, whatever comes up that day. More roster graphics. I think that a lot more videos explaining like specific teams, kind of getting into the weeds of like rosters of like maybe some of the smaller countries on Instagram. And I'm going to start making my infographic overviews of like a little bit more than just the rosters for each country. I did this in 2023 and it was pretty successful. People really like to see a little bit more of like the history for each team in the WBC. So I'm putting those together as well. Those should be coming out pretty shortly, soon before the WBC. And ultimately, like for me, it's like if you want to engage in baseball cultures around the world and engage with different people from different places in the world, and if you're interested in international baseball at all, seeing what it looks like and feels like and sounds like around the world, then that's why I do what I do, to like tell those stories. So if that interests you at all, then feel free to shoot me a follow.
So guys, make sure to check out everything that Shawn's mentioned. Check him out on X, check him out on Instagram, check him out on TikTok, and support the WBC. Shawn, it's been a pleasure, and we'll talk to you hopefully soon.
Thank you guys so much.
All right, we want to thank Shawn Spradling for joining us on here, talking all things World Baseball Classic. What a great conversation, and has me jazzed up for what's going to be an awesome tournament in a few weeks.
Yeah, man, you can tell Shawn kind of lives and breathes this stuff and is putting in the work. And like we said before, if you haven't been following him and you're getting ready for the WBC, you got to give him a follow. He really is the de facto follow here leading up to the tournament and during the tournament as well. And even afterwards, I think that's the kind of thing that separates him is once the World Baseball Classic is over, I don't think Shawn stops like posting about international baseball and, you know, the lead up to everything. So great follow.
For sure. And again, this is a guy we've been trying to have on, and we highly recommend all the content. It's only getting kicked off right now. As we mentioned, 17 days away for what's going to be a very memorable WBC. And Devin, I want to give you a lot of credit, man. The episode with Chris Welsh and that for fantasy baseball, I listened back. It was a great episode. So kudos to you and Chris having an awesome conversation. And I felt very prepared for my upcoming drafts that I'm looking forward to it. And Welsh for always bringing the heat.
I appreciate it, man. I mean, that was fun. And honestly, I just like legit like having a conversation with him. It just happened to be cameras on, and I learned a lot as well in that episode. But I was a little nervous doing it myself for the first time. But thankfully, having him on with me, I felt like it was a smooth episode there. But I got to say, tonight, the one thing I'm upset about is I completely botched the David Wright question that Shawn put my way. Like, I'm here asking questions all night, and I can't take one question my way without completely flubbing it. I didn't even get the intention of the question right. But he had to educate me a little bit.
I'm willing to bet though that he has a Michael Kadire jersey hanging up somewhere. They seem like boys.
I just know they're buddies. Like he kind of brought him over to the Mets. I thought Shawn was going with like jerseys that David Wright has of other players, but yeah, if I was thinking of his own jerseys, the WBC one would have been one of my first guesses, obviously. But I do wonder. I know we said the 2015 World Series. It's got to either be that one or his debut, or maybe even like his final game, like his last game. No, you can't have 06. 06 is like bittersweet. Like just, I know
great
that
year. Great year.
I got to say that, yes. Oh my God. But that conversation, and we kind of alluded to it with Shawn a little bit, like that is one of the cool things about it. I remember seeing David Wright talk about how like he and the Phillies guys, like they legitimately did not like each other, Jimmy Rollins, and they ended up playing together. I think it was, I don't know if Victorino was there too, but I know Jimmy Rollins was on that team with him. And I think they said at first it was a little bit weird, like they didn't talk much. And then next thing you know, they're celebrating together in a dog pile together. Like it is weird to see that. I can't think of who that might be this year. Again, those rivalries are not quite as thick in nowadays game as they were back then. But I wonder if we see any of those kind of strange friendships that you wouldn't expect to see this year.
Yeah, I think the brotherhood in baseball is a lot maybe thicker than it was even when David Wright was playing. It's more of a fraternity. You could think about Yankees, Red Sox playing together, as he mentioned, Roman Anthony, and Yankee fans rooting for Roman Anthony now that he's on the team in replacement of Corbin Carroll. But there's a certain affinity that for this WBC as we watch it grow. And we mentioned 06 and watching it be this birthing of what is going to be a new tradition. And as I mentioned before on the show, it's hard to replicate history. And as we continue to grow this whole thing, you're standing on the shoulders of other moments. We mentioned a few of them, the Trout Ohtani stuff, the Adam Jones catch, that holds the weight. And as time goes on, it's going to feel more and more important. And maybe there's a time and place, like, and we're old men yelling at the clouds, it's 2026, but maybe there's a year in 2056 where the World Baseball Classic means more than the World Series. There's a world where that happens if this trajectory continues, like the World Cup, for a lot of soccer fans, they root locally for whatever team and whatever league that their affinities for. But at the same time, I think they'd rather their country win the World Cup. And maybe we'll reach that point in Major League Baseball one day where the World Baseball Classic holds more esteem than the Commissioner's Trophy. Who knows?
Yeah, you don't know what's ahead. And Shawn put out a great video just a few days ago, kind of hyping up the tournament. And one of the points he made, as far as like comparing the World Baseball Classic to the World Cup in soccer, is you have to remember the World Cup has decades and decades and decades and decades of a head start on the World Baseball Classic. So yeah, you brought up that point pretty early in the episode, and it's well put as far as like we are kind of building that history as we speak. And 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the road, this may be held in even higher regard than we feel it's being held right now.
I mean, the first World Cup was 1930. Just put some perspective on that. We're almost approaching 100 years as we take the field for MetLife Stadium hosting some games where there's 100 years of history. I know FIFA took over like 22 years ago, whatever, 22 editions ago, but that the focus of that has been almost 100 years. And like people need to take stock of where we're at as far as the trajectory of the game. But the one thing I will say, and I listen to a lot of sports radio, I know you do the same as well, for WFFAN, and this conversation popped up for the NBA Cup with the Knicks. Everyone was talking about hanging the banner, don't hang the banner. Doesn't mean anything, etc. There's so many local fans, especially in New York, and maybe I can speak to any other fan base, probably the same. If you listen to radio in Philly and Baltimore, whatever, there's so many people that are so nearsighted about the growth of the game. They don't want to hear anything else about their, aside from their local team succeeding. And it's exhausting because you hear the same conversation about the Olympics as well. I just think baseball fans need to have a worldly view of what's going on here. And the WBC, you're missing out on something really fun if you're burying your head in the sand and not watching this because it doesn't quote unquote mean anything to you. And it really bothers me a lot to hear people say that.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to take a little while. You and I doing this podcast and being on social media too, I think it's hard for us sometimes to separate what the casual fan is thinking and what the hardcore baseball fans are thinking. Because I think of the hardcore baseball fans like, oh, this is like awesome. Like where everyone's so locked into the players coming over from Japan now. And I feel like that's made the world feel a little bit smaller. Right. And not just Japan, other places as well, but Japan kind of dominates that space sometimes. And also some of our players going over to NPB and playing there and then coming back, like that's made the world feel smaller. And what Shawn said about like, this is kind of like a preview of some guys that might be in Major League Baseball in a few years that aren't yet, kind of a showcase like it was for Yamamoto and Imanaga. But I don't know if the casual fan necessarily thinks of it the same way. I will say, as a hardcore baseball fan, back in 2023, when Edwin Diaz got the season-ending injury as a member of my Mets, and I'll put this in perspective, it was the year after we won 101 games and somehow tied the Braves for the division, and they had the tiebreaker on us, which was like we went 101 games and we can't even win the division. And then we went and played the Padres with home field advantage and lost. It's a Joe Musgrove game, the shiny ear. So that season, after being so good, ended on a bitter note. And then you're looking forward to the next season to try to, go further. And it starts with the Edwin Diaz thing in the World Baseball Classic. I will fully admit I was out at that point. I was out. I was like old man yells at cloud at that point. I'm like, I don't want my stars of my team playing in this thing because it has the power to absolutely decimate the season. And that's what that injury did, to be completely honest. It just took all the air out of the balloon. But with time comes perspective, and you listen to the players talk about it. You can listen to us talk about it. You can listen to Shawn talk about it. But really, if you want to have some perspective, actually listen to the players and what it means to them. And I think if you're still stuck in your bubble at that point, I mean, there might not be any helping you.
Yeah, and right, wrong, or indifferent, these games will be the biggest game that Paul Skeens has pitched in his professional career as of right now. And that's the true fact. So we would hope that Paul Skeens eventually has a platform in the World Series. But as of right now, Paul Skeens sees this as an opportunity to play meaningful, competitive, championship-level baseball around the best players in the world. And that feels like it's contagious. And if the players want to be there and there's a pride of country, how do you not want to be a part of something like this and watch it? And it is something like, again, Aaron Judge. I'm a New York Yankees fan. He is the most important player on that New York Yankees roster. He is battling injuries from last year. There has been conversations have been reported in the camp about the elbow stuff, and he's playing full tilt. He wants to be there. I know there's probably concerned Yankee fans and people that don't want him to get hurt, but there is a certain level of responsibility that these superstars have to the game of baseball to grow it. And it starts with the international footprint of the WBC. And I think people need to look at that, especially where this looming lockout in 2027, baseball needs to really focus on the elaborate growth and what is that pattern. And it can't be stuck in its own bubble because, as we know, fandom needs to expand. And for the game we love, we need to have more of a far-sighted, overhead, forest through the trees type of view. And the World Baseball Class is exactly that.
Yeah, and by the way, this is a complete aside, really, really off track to be honest, but I'm going to mention it anyway. And then we'll get out of here in a second. But Aaron Judge, who you mentioned, the NBC. So like obviously baseball is going to be on NBC Sunday Night Baseball this year. The commercials they put out with Aaron Judge and hitting the home runs all over New York in the different NBC studios, fantastic. Well done. Like I'm so optimistic and hopeful that they are going to do right by baseball. Kind of where ESPN, I think, dropped the ball for a while.
I thought you were going to mention his comments about the Yankees' "quote unquote" brutal offseason. That might be another. We might need to drop an episode on that. Good for him out there. He didn't name players by name that they didn't get, but he did say while watching, said, "quote We are the New York Yankees. We need to build on it." And when the captain speaks, everyone should be listening. Let's be honest, and we'll talk more about it in our season preview. We're not going to get too far into it, but days are numbered for Brian Cashman. Days are numbered for Aaron Boone if this season doesn't go better than the last one did. I truly believe that.
Superstars speaking their mind early in spring training. I mean, Bryce Harper, that's another 10-minute segment on an episode that we're not going to really pull apart right now. But I mean, you had to love it. I mean, maybe not if you're a Philly fan. I think you're a little nervous, but yeah, superstars speaking their minds to start the season. Yep.
So make sure you guys check us out on social media at Tablesetters Pod on both IG and on X. You guys can also check us out on YouTube. We just surpassed 100 subscribers at Tablesetters Baseball. So thank you guys for the love over on YouTube. If you're so kind, please leave a 5-star review on Apple, on Spotify. Leave a comment on this video. Tell us what you love, what country you're rooting for, what are you looking forward into the WBC, and just tell us about the show. Shoot us a message on social media. If you send a message on Tablesetters Pod on X, Devin will surely answer you. Send a DM. Devin or I will answer you on Instagram. We're very interactive. We want to engage everybody in baseball and spread the love. And pretty soon, it's going to be time to do our division previews. Believe it or not, everyone is there. They're reported to camps, etc. And we're getting ready for the WBC. We'll be doing live reactions to the WBC games. We're going to be trying to sprinkle those in on live shows. So we're going to stay tuned for those things. But we're also going to get ready for our division previews and make some predictions for this upcoming season. Hopefully, it's not the last season for a little bit. We'll get all into that AL East, NL East, etc. And go back and check out the ones we've done. We're going to really file a fine-tuned schedule to get you guys all the baseball content you need.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the division previews. I actually, a few times today, I actually thought, like, I have to go back and look to see when we released those, because those are going to come up quick. And, you got to do 6 of them in pretty short order.
Started it, actually. I saw them put out some of their team previews. And I was like, whoa, it's coming up already?
I think what we try to do is we try to do it all relatively not too spread apart, because you don't want to, in my opinion, you don't want to have an AL West preview mid-February and then not have, like, let's say your NL East preview until, I don't know, second week of March. Like, if you spread it out that far, it's a little uneven, because, if you do the AL West in mid-February, by the time March hits, it could be completely different if there is injuries or anything like that. So I think what we try to do is keep it within a week or so, a week and a half. And I think we did a good job of that last year. We got to try to do that again. So we'll look back, but those are coming. But like Steve said, subscribe everywhere you can. We appreciate you guys listening. If you didn't listen to the last episode, fantasy baseball based, I mean, Welsh always gives great information. And honestly, it is a good way to kind of prepare. We hit on a lot of different things. So go back and listen to that, and more to come. Good stuff ahead.
March 9th through 18th, we dropped all of our division previews, and then we finished up on March 18th with our full MLB predictions, postseason awards, World Series picks. So it's coming up about a month from now. We'll give you guys all those episodes.
Perfect. All right.
So we're going to get out of here, guys. We appreciate it. Again, follow us on all social media. We'll be back soon. Thank you again to Shawn for popping on here and enjoying all the conversation. So until that time, we'll talk to you after a while. And as always, happy baseball.
that has been so improbable, the impossible has happened. This one by Madden.